Now, when a lot of people think about the early days of rock and roll, they may think of Elvis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, and Jerry Lee Lewis. But Bill Haley and his Comets are one of the original pioneers of rock and roll. And back in July 9th of 1955, Rock Around the Clock became the first rock and roll song to ever reach #1 on the Billboard charts. And one could say that Bill Haley and his Comets were the first national and international rock and roll stars. Bill Haley gave rock and roll music its big breakthrough. And although Bill Haley has been gone for over 40 years now, Bill Haley's son, Bill Haley Jr., has been carrying on the tradition that his famous father started with his tribute act, Bill Haley Jr. and the Comets. He's recapturing the sound, the feel, and the excitement, and he's transporting his audiences to the beginnings of rock and roll. Now, this past winter, I was invited to play and sit in with Bill Haley Jr. and the Comets when they came to Florida to play the Florida Strawberry Festival in Plant City. Now, it was certainly an honor to be asked and to play on stage with them. It was so much fun. I had a great time. And after the show, I was able to get in an interview with Bill Haley Jr. in a dressing room that was empty backstage. So without further ado, and with great pleasure, here is my interview with Bill Haley Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, beside me is Bill Haley Jr., son of Bill Haley, who was one of the original pioneers of rock and roll with his band Bill Haley and his Comets. Bill, it's nice to finally meet you.
What a pleasure, Damian. What a pleasure. I'm a big fan of you, your teaching style, your personality. You're a great inspiration to me as well.
Well, thank you very much. I've been wanting to meet you in person for a while now. We've connected for a couple of years, and this just worked out where we were able to meet together. And thank you for sitting down with me and doing this.
My pleasure.
Today we are here at the Strawberry Festival in Plant City. It's a week-long festival, and it has huge acts like Willie Nelson, Leonard Skinner plays here, and what I heard was that today's show that you played was one of their largest crowds they've had on a morning show on a Thursday.
This is the earliest we've ever played, 10:30 in the morning. So the first for us.
Yeah, I remember when you told me, yeah, we're going to be playing in the morning. I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be in the afternoon. Because like most musicians, some of us sleep late.
Yeah. Well, we're used to doing 8 o'clock shows, occasionally a 3 o'clock matinee on a Sunday, but first time 10:30 in the morning. But hey, same tunes.
You're here playing in your band, a tribute band to your father's music, Bill Haley Jr. and his Comets.
Yes. So
my first question is, how did this tribute show to your father's music start, and how did this all come to be?
Well, at Damian, I'll start by plugging my book. As you know, I wrote a book about my father called Crazy Man Crazy, the Bill Haley story, and that was really a lifelong project for me. It really started back in my college days. And through researching the book, I got to meet a lot of people, but I always resisted offers to come out and actually perform my father's music. It was intimidating to me. I had some, psychological issues to work through in terms of my relationship with my father. But I had the music bug in me, and I had some original songs I started writing, in my teens, and one thing led to another. So at a certain point, I got to do record a CD of my original tunes. And we were doing a CD release party in a small retail store in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania called Diving Cat Studio. And the host asked me to do some of my dad's tunes. I did. Somebody took a cell phone video, put it on YouTube, and I got a call from my booking agent who you met today, Wayne Honeycutt. He said, if you put together a band to do your father's music professionally, I could get you some work. So I formed a new band. I found musicians who really specialize in this type of music, and that was 2010. And
so, not to cut you off, the power of the internet brought you to this.
Totally.
YouTube. Was it on?
It was on YouTube. YouTube, and I might say we did it very poorly, Rock Around the Clock, with my garage band. But it was enough for Wayne to see the potential. Wayne, my booking agent. So as I mentioned, I got different musicians who were really specialized in this. And then since then we got a tour in New Zealand in 2014, which was phenomenal. But we mostly played all over the United States, mainly a lot of Texas, Florida, Midwest, occasionally out to the West Coast, Northeast where I live. We do some shows, and occasionally I get invited to go over to the UK and perform over there using their backing musicians as well. So to answer your question, here we are, 2023. So it's been 13 years since I I stopped resisting and decided to go ahead and do this.
Incredible. Well, you guys put on a fantastic show today.
Thank you.
So professional.
Thank you.
It was an amazing sight to see, and to sit in with you guys for a song was a lot of fun. That was giddy.
Yeah. Well, your viewers, if you know Damian, you've seen him do his instructional video of Hot Dog Buddy Buddy. So we had him come up and do Hot Dog Buddy Buddy, and of course we stretched out the guitar solo quite a bit, and it was fabulous. I mean, what a great player Damian is, as you all know. So it was a pure joy for me as well.
Oh, thank you. Now, this past February, you played the iconic Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa.
Yeah.
And for the viewers out there that maybe aren't aware, the Surf Ballroom, it was the Winter Dance Party tribute show that you just played. And that is where Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper had their final show before that horrible plane crash. Mm-hmm. And so what was that experience like to play at the Surf Ballroom? Can you tell me a little about that? And I think you've played it twice now. Right,
that was our second trip there. We were back here, I think it was 2015 or 17, I can't recall. That was our first trip. And anyway, that was a pretty cool trip. And of course, as you know, Damian, you've been there and you've seen the kind of a museum situation. We have a lot of photos on the wall. So it's like stepping back in time going there and seeing that. But then getting up on stage and playing on that stage. And just, the people who are there are pure rockabilly fans. That's who comes. So, it's always great. It's nice playing for any audience, but especially nice when you have people who really know and appreciate every song. And so it was one of those deals where we really just, we just killed it as a band, and the audience reacted, and it was just a wonderful experience for everybody. Yeah.
Very cool. This is a good question. What's your favorite song in the set, or highlight? Something that you really get a kick out of playing?
Well, I always answer that question, Damian, by saying it's not one particular song, but it's one particular period. I'm especially fond of the early Essex period. So those tunes like Crazy Man Crazy, we do Rocking Chair in the Moon, Real Rock Drive, those Essex tunes that were recorded in 1952. Of course, Rocket 88 was a holiday record in 1951, but those early tunes, they're the ones I enjoy playing the most, and the records I enjoyed listening to the most of my father's. Now, obviously, the Decca hits are iconic, and
the thing about those Decca recordings, their recordings themselves sound so slick, clean, like they stand up to today's recordings. Just they're so it's.
Well, you had. Obviously, the producer, Mel Gabler, who was a professional as you can possibly get. And then, of course, the venue, the Pythian Ballroom, was just the reverb in that room.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And it was just hard to match that anywhere.
But I have to agree with you. Your father's music from 50 to 54, stuff like Rock the Joint, Green Tree Boogie, Real Rock Drive, the Saddleman stuff, and early Comets.
Yeah.
That's what I love. Oh, well, let's talk about... I did see you selling a lot of stuff out there, so you've recorded a CD of you redoing your father's classic hits.
That's correct.
Where can the viewers pick up the CD or download the album?
There's a link. If you go to Bill Haley Jr., BillHaleyJR.com, there's a website, and there are links there where you can download and purchase the CD right there. You can probably get it off of Amazon as well. CD Baby distributes it as well, if anyone's familiar with that. So it's available that way as well. I mean, normally we just bring them out and sell them at shows, but anyone could or you could probably digital download it in 30 seconds online if you wanted that.
Well, I'll make sure to put a link to your website in the comments.
Perfect.
In the info.
Okay.
And this is just something I wanted to say to you, that I really dig that you give some history or a little tale, something personal about your father before you do a song. And sometimes, not today, but I know you have some photographs behind you where you can.
So generally, in most shows, and unfortunately today they weren't equipped to accommodate, but I have a PowerPoint presentation of 440 rare photos. And they're on a timer depending on the length of the show. So if it's a 75-minute show, that's every 14 seconds.
Okay.
If it's a 90-minute show, it's a little more time. But we go through all 400 photos, and then I tell stories. And as I mentioned earlier, I researched the book and spent 40 years researching the book, and I interviewed every living ex-Comet that I could find, and family members, my mother, my father's first wife, my father's business manager. So did a ton of research for the book, and so my head just filled with these stories. So when I get up there and introduce the songs, a story always comes to mind that kind of adds a little color, a little flavor, a little history, just make it feel a little more authentic. People seem to love it. I always get good comments about that.
You've mentioned a little bit about your book.
Yeah.
So you co-wrote a book
Right.
about your father's life called Crazy Man Crazy, the Bill Haley Story.
Right.
The book talks about your dad's entire career, from his beginnings to his rise and what some would call the fall,
Yep.
a fall.
Yep.
But it's an intimate look inside your dad's personal life. And I thought I knew a lot about your dad. I like to think that I knew a lot, but there was a lot of details and a lot of little things that I did not know. So it's a very interesting read, something if you're a fan of your father's music, it's a must read. But what made you decide to write this? And I know you briefly said how long you were
Right.
gathering information about this book, but
Right.
I know this must have been a big deal to you, and something maybe you possibly didn't want to do or feel comfortable doing.
Mhm.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about
Sure.
how this.
Sure, and you read the book, so you kind of know where I'm coming from here. My let's say lack of relationship with my father growing up was very difficult for me to deal with, and also having my father's name. So basically, my father abandoned our family in 1962. He moved to Mexico, and I'd had no contact with him until the last year and a half of his life. He died in 1981. So in 1979, we got back in touch. But my father was a chronic alcoholic. It really started after the UK tour in '57. So that year and a half when I was in touch with him, it was usually many phone calls late at night, middle of the night, and my father was usually very intoxicated. So very, very difficult. So I really had to come to terms. So to your point, it actually started when I was in college. I was asked to write something biographical. So I wrote it about my father in college for a term paper. And I just never stopped researching. I kept going and going and going, and got to the point where I had a 160,000 word manuscript.
Wow.
And I appeared in England, and I was interviewed for one of the rockabilly magazines in England, and a literary agent read the article and contacted me and said, would you be interested in writing a book about your father? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I've got a 160,000 word manuscript. So I sent it to him. And of course he loved the content, but he felt it needed some extra attention from a professional writer. So he partnered me with Peter Benjaminson, who's written a number of books about Motown artists. And he wrote Rick James, but Mary Wells, a lot of Supremes. Peter's a very good writer. So Peter took my 160,000 words and chopped it down to the 80,000 words that the publisher was requesting. So a lot was left out. And most of the book is basically my words. He just edited out a lot of it, and then he added some details about things like the movies my father appeared in, and those parts Peter contributed to the book. So it was a collaborative effort, and we worked very well together. But basically, he took my 40 years worth of research and writing, and really just kind of got the best of it together for the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people watching this can pick that book up on your website?
On my website, there's a link, so you can order it from Amazon. Very easy to get. And it's also, it's actually two publishers. In North America, it's Backbeat Books. If you're watching this over in Europe or UK, it's Omnibus Press. So there's two different books. Basically the same book, but it is edited differently. Different photos. But it's available at most bookstores since they're both major publishers. So if you go to a Barnes & Noble, they may actually have it on the shelves.
Okay.
If not, you can go to any bookstore, just ask for it by name, and you can look it up very easily and order it and have it for you. But the quickest way to get it is just go to Amazon, type in Crazy Man Crazy, Bill Haley Story, Bill Haley Jr. It'll come up as a book and very easy to order, and you probably get a used copy pretty cheap. Not that I want to undersell myself, but. So yeah, it's a hardcover book, and very easy to get through Amazon, as I said, or any bookstore.
Bill, you're one of 10 children that your father had.
Correct.
How close are you to your other siblings?
Unfortunately, not close at all. And part of the tragic part of this book is it's kind of a lesson in dysfunction that happens when your family breaks up like that. My dad really kind of basically abandoned his first two families. And his first family, I did get in touch with my older brother, who's named Jack, but we didn't maintain a relationship. In my own family, unfortunately, my siblings were not that close. And Jimmy, who's the next son after me disappeared, and we lost him, and we don't know what happened. We hired investigators. We had our inspector, who was our senator, try to look for him. So we don't even know where he is. I have a younger brother, Scott, and we stay in touch. Sister Joni, and then my father's third family. He married a woman from Mexico, Martha Velasquez, and they had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son with them. And I've kind of reached out to them, but just because of the dysfunction due to the way my father treated his families, there's a residual effect where it's just difficult to bridge those issues.
Yeah. I think that I've read that your half-brother Pedro has your dad's Super 400.
Yes.
Gibson Super 400.
Yes, that's right. I'm aware of that, and as far as I know, he has lent it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where it's now on display.
Oh wow!
I think that he did have it in his possession, and I did see Brian Setzer.
Yes, I've seen that video.
Yeah, played it at one of his concerts.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But after that, subsequent to that, he lent it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, as far as I know. So I believe it's there on display.
Okay, well that's really cool. I would love to see that. How about your dad's black Gibson L7?
That was lost. They were in Chicago, and all the equipment and instruments were in a truck in Chicago, and the truck was stolen. And it's never been recovered. I'm sure it's somewhere, and I don't know if anybody ever tried to sell Bill Haley's Gibson L7. But as far as I know, it's lost to history. No one's ever found it or tracked it down.
So, what personal items do you have of your dad's? Do you have anything that was?
Well, I have the gold record of Rock Around the Clock. That was issued to my father. Each band member got a copy. So my dad's copy, when my dad left for Mexico in '62, he left that behind. He left some other gold records, which I gave to I distributed to him. So his Shake, Rattle, and Roll gold record went to one of my brothers. Sea Layer Alligator went to the other brother. And the Brunswick, UK gold record for Rock Around the Clock went to my sister. I kept the Decca gold record for Rock Around the Clock.
Wow.
So I have that. I have some of the Cash Box awards that he received.
Okay.
I have a lot. I have a very cool collection that was done professionally of clippings of the UK tour in '57. It's like 3 volumes of every press release clipping during that UK tour. I have all that. I have some of the early programs. So just little things.
Okay.
I have this ring that was my dad's. I have another opal ring that they bought in '57. So I have little bits and pieces of knick-knack, but my prized possession is the gold record of Rock Around the Clock.
First, I'm a lefty, and I play righty.
How about that?
Were you knew always that like I got to play lefty, or were you someone that you were like, yeah, try righty, or you should play righty?
Well, I don't know if it's ambidextrous is the right word, but half the things I do left-handed, half the things I do right-handed. I throw a baseball left-handed, I throw a football right-handed. I punt with my left foot, I place it with my right foot. So I bat right-handed, but I throw a baseball left-handed. So when I picked up the guitar, that was naturally left-handed felt right. So I switched the strings around. I actually had one of my dad's old guitars, which I unfortunately don't have. I could kill myself for losing it. But it was an old, thick-necked acoustic guitar with nylon strings, and I switched the strings around, and that's how I learned. Learning Beatles songs and whatnot. Just that's how you make a C chord. That's how you make.
How old were you when you started?
But 18, 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah. And then and I just continued playing left-handed my whole life. Yeah.
So do you remember your first like maybe real electric guitar that you bought yourself that you spent some money on?
Well, it was a cheap Strat probably, and it was much later because I always played acoustic guitars, growing up, and of course I put it away and raised my 2 stepdaughters and didn't play for 10 years, but then I'm going to say about 20 years ago, I got a left-handed Strat, and then we started the band in 2011. I got the Epiphone that you've seen me play. The red Epiphone.
Yeah, you were playing that for years.
Yeah.
And now you got the Gibson.
And now I just bought the Gibson ES335 about 6 months ago.
Okay, cool. Could be a weird question. Do you have a favorite moment that you can remember with your dad? Maybe something, making a fishing trip or something when you were little?
Unfortunately my father didn't do too many father-son things with me, but we did spend a lot of time during the summers at the Jersey Shore. We would go to amusement parks and whatnot. And of course he would come home on holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. But one of my favorite memories, earliest memories actually, is our home was called Melody Manor in Boothman, Pennsylvania, and we had a 3-car garage. And the band would practice in that garage. And as a kid, I would wander into the garage, and my father would give me a set of drumsticks and a cardboard box and say, play along with the band. And I'll always remember, me thinking I was 5 years old, maybe 6, and just being a comet. And it was such a cool experience for me. Yeah.
One thing that's really awesome is that even in your dad's later years, there's a lot of clips of him performing in the late 70s, Europe, Germany,
right.
Some good performances. What I noticed that even in his, as an older man, he still sang awesome. He's still on key.
Mm-hmm.
He's still, and that's not something that a lot of musicians can do.
Yeah.
In their later years.
Yeah.
They can't get the high notes anymore.
Yeah.
Your dad still had his voice.
Yeah.
He sounds just like he did back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's just, to me, I think that's pretty impressive.
I think that was a result of the fact that that they played so much. I mean, he never took. He took a couple of years off, 1976 to 78, after Rudy Pompili died. But other than that, he toured 40 or more weeks per year every year since the early 50s or mid 50s, say. And so he kept his chops up. He kept singing, and he was he didn't get rusty, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably the reason why he never stopped singing, and ever he kept it up.
What's next for you? What are your plans with this band?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you mentioned something about maybe trying to get like a documentary done
Right, I'm
about
currently,
your dad.
right, exactly. And so I'm currently working on a documentary. I have a couple of partners who actually started making a documentary in the 1980s. So they got some very early interviews with Johnny Grandy and Ralph Jones and some of the Comets, and some well-known people like Graham Nash, Mick Taylor, others on camera, Les Paul, talking about Bill Haley's influence. So they had the basis for a documentary, but they hit a brick wall and didn't go anywhere. And so a few years ago, I got in touch with them and asked them what was going on. And one thing led to another, so we're partnering to try to get that thing completed now. So I've been working very hard. I probably have 1,400 images. I have, scores of hours of video. I have audio interviews that I collected during my research for my book. So I've got a ton of content. So we're in the process now of trying to edit it down and create it and find someone to pick it up and finish it professionally, and get it to something like a Netflix or some kind of major distribution. So the goal is to have a documentary done at some point, hopefully in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes. But I think there's a fascinating story. My father's story has so many elements to it, not just his professional success, but also in the game of life, to reach the pinnacle of success after being a nobody, poor boy, and working hard, making the way to the top. And then unfortunately there's some tragic, alcohol plays a large part in the story, and it really led to my father's early demise and downfall as well. Also what it does to a family when your first commitment is to your profession, your music, and to be away from home, as I said, 40 plus weeks a year, it really, it's kind of tragic, the impact that it had on the family. So, and of course, a lot of the story in the book is told through the perspective of my mother, who was his second wife, from 1951 to 62. So during those high points of his career, the Decca years, so, and the Essex years. So, so it's just a fascinating story, and all kinds of angles to it that appeals to people who are into it for the music, but also people who are interested in just what fame can do to people and the impact that it has on people's lives. So it's a great story, and a lot of drama, and a lot of history. So it's a story that deserves to be told, and hopefully we'll get this documentary done, and hopefully maybe someday I'll get another movie deal. We had a movie deal for the book when it came out, but that fell through because of COVID. The producer who bought the rights couldn't make it happen under those circumstances. So hopefully maybe another producer will buy the rights, and we'll see a major motion picture at some point as well.
Awesome, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me and talking to me, and thank you for being the torchbearer of your father's music, of this music that I love, that many people around the world still love and enjoy. I like to think of this music as still current. It's not oldies but goodies. So thank you so much, and thank you for having me out to the show today
Yeah.
and play with you guys.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yes, and thank you for what you do. Because you know what, this music is so cool, and there are very few people like yourself who are really are really teaching in a way that's very digestible, very accessible, and who knows, you might be inspiring a whole nother generation of rock
Well, I hope so. I hope both of us are probably, hopefully, doing such a thing.
Yeah.
It's a great form of music to play. I enjoy it.
It brings, and that's the, maybe finish with this, that's the key. At every show, it's nice to travel, to make a few bucks, but honestly, the best part of all this is after the show to meet the people at the shows and to see how much joy, how much happiness. It's just, every time, and it's just over and over. Boy, you made me feel great. You brought back memories. Man, I had so much fun. I love that, bringing happiness and joy to people. There's nothing more rewarding than that. So that's what this music's all about.
And we are finished. Thank you, Bill.
All right,
Bill
man.
Haley Jr., everyone.
Damian Bacci.
Now friends, thank you so much for watching this interview today, and before I go, I'd like to leave you with some inspiring words. Whatever bad moments you may be going through, and whatever tough experiences you may be dealing with, just know that better days are just around the corner. And I know at times rough patches and bad situations can seem to define a person, but I'm here to tell you, you are deserving of love and you deserve good things. And all human beings have the ability to take any situation and make it better. It all has to do with your mindset. Positivity is the key. And with that, friends, I'm going to say goodbye to you. Much love to you all. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon in another guitar video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.